Hello, Britt. Welcome to the Make Life Rich movement.
Hey Sarah, how are you?
So good. I am very excited to speak with you today. You are saved in my phone as Britt Angel because you are such a beautiful soul, and I'm so excited to share your story today with my Richies, with my network.
I love
Guys, let
that.
me
Thank
just
you so much.
oh
That's an honor. I appreciate that.
oh thank you. No, seriously, you're guys, you're gonna be inspired today, and not only be inspired to make a difference in your community, but also figure out a way in which to like really harness your passion and do it in a way that allows you to also live life and kind of be able to like forge your own path as an entrepreneur. So excited. So Britt is a community advocate. You're founder of the Philly Unknown Project, which I'm so excited to speak about. CEO of the Metropolitan Philly Pet Watching Service, which you are the only person I would trust to watch my pets
Well, thank
at
you.
all, let alone an extended period of time. Like you'd probably be it. Uh, Host of the Be a Voice show, and you are the founder of the Triumphant Transitions Recovery Homes.
I
A
am.
laundry list of amazing accomplishments.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, I keep busy as possible. It keeps me out of trouble, and it keeps me honest, and it keeps me connecting with different people from different areas of life. So I enjoy it.
Yeah. And honestly, it's been so a little backstory, guys. We both lived in Philadelphia at a time. I moved out 2 years ago, but I came across your being with your original photography page, and your work was whew, so stunning. You personified all the parts of Philadelphia so beautifully. And that was the first time that I had kind of come across you. And then since then, it's just been a fast friendship of just enjoying your efforts and all the things you do. But can you tell me about your start in Philadelphia?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been back in Philadelphia. I'm originally from the area, born and raised in the Allentown area, and with my jobs, I traveled all over and ended up back here and been back in Philadelphia for almost 16 years, which is great because I love Philly. Philly is just home. So when I say Philadelphia, it actually even sounds weird, because that's what people from not from here say. So I've been back in Philly 16 years, and during that time, I started. I left my corporate job because it was so draining and it wasn't me anymore. And I started Metropolitan Pet Sitting and Dog Walking as a company. Um, I fell back into active addiction pretty heavily when I got to Philadelphia, and that sort of put me on a downward spiral, but yet put me on an uh, onward and upward rise to bettering myself in the very end. So, I've done a lot of stuff in the last 16 years. From the pet sitting, dog walking to the active addiction to going into recovery to starting Philly Unknown as the page on Instagram to the nonprofit to everything else. But yeah, I don't even know where to start sometimes. There's so much going on in my head. My brain doesn't shut down sometimes, probably like yours,
Yes,
you know. But
always on.
that's sort of who I am and what I did and where I'm at in a nutshell.
I love it. And I think that's a really great place to start. You covered all of the things for me, and all of them are just really indicative of how open you are and how much you care enough about others to share your story. I think that the connection that we can find with others about things that are difficult to get through by yourself, namely addiction, it's been just really beautiful to watch you first just sharing your story to now just being such an advocate for people that do not get the empathy or the services or the help that they so desperately need.
Yeah, and I appreciate that so much because like when I was in active addiction and even the times that the few times that I had a small stints of like being in recovery, I never really talked about it. Especially like during growing up in my time and age, which sounds like I'm really old, but uh, mid 50s, 56, I just turned, so I'll take it. I never thought I was going to live past 50, so I'm cool.
Yes, it's a
And
blessing.
especially coming from where I come from in the Allentown area, it's a very much more conservative area and not as open or progressive or liberal at the time. And somebody like myself who was in active drug addiction or active substance use disorder, it was difficult to it was difficult to maintain, a balance of a life. So I ended up just separating myself from people.
Yeah.
And when I found these connections, when I wanted to go into recovery and I wanted to become somebody I never knew who I was or meet myself for the first time, it was the connections to people that really just brought me to where I'm at, because I never had healthy connections in my life. I was
Yeah.
always the person who was like, I'll hang out with you because you got some good drugs, or I'll hang out with you because you could do something for my career, or I'll hang out with you because you said you're going to pay for drinks, or I'll hang out with you because nobody else likes me right now. So like I developed a lot of healthy connections, and I'm really not quite sure I'm going to go with it, but it's really about being able to be open, be transparent. I wasn't open all these years, so when people say to me, "Wow, you share a lot," if I don't share a lot, then it's going to affect me. I could be
Yeah.
back out doing what I was doing. I could be working on my sixth overdose. I could be in a mental health breakdown again. And I think there are so many people out there suffering through trauma, through substance use disorder, mental health, domestic violence, emotional and violence as well, as I call it, emotional assaults, that there's not enough voices. And I wanted to be able to be that voice,
Yeah.
because there was nobody who was a voice for me. So
Yeah.
it's important that I do that. So that was a long way of saying that
No.
it actually made me healthy.
It's it's so interesting that you explain it that way, because it does come off very much so that you understand very deeply how lonely they are and how isolated they feel. And you know the impact of what one conversation or just one person being kind can do for you. I think the thing for me that your work specifically really not changed my mind on, but gave me a what feels like a very clear picture of the closest reality one can get to understanding how this happened, what's going on. Because I come from a very small town. We have the very beginnings of a drug addiction problem here in homelessness. They're being bused from Philadelphia to Atlantic City, from Atlantic City to Cape May, and they're homeless, and they are just being rifled right back into the system they were stuck in Philadelphia. And the people down here have zero empathy. They are speaking in the narrative of the 50s, 60s, 70s. They deserve it. It's this, that, and the third. And your work gave me the closest bit of just understanding that it is something that could happen to anyone at any moment's notice. No one is free from the strength of these drugs that are so easily accessed. I think your story really made a really kind of poignant connection between you having an injury that led to you being prescribed something, and then from there, because everyone else is being prescribed something, it's just plentiful and ready to be taken. Oh, I love it.
I told you what happened.
Let's see if Sophia does. She's like, "Where are the dogs?"
That's funny. And I have one that is just a little yapper and doesn't stop until like.
Totally fine. I love it.
What happened?
We love dogs here.
I didn't have my earbuds and I couldn't find them, so I couldn't put them in. So they're sort of.
No, totally fine.
Okay.
I don't care at all. I love animals. They can make all the noise they want. But I do really I treasure your work. I think your work has been something I've shared with a lot of people that have just never seen it. They don't understand. I have friends in Philadelphia that we started out the same. And me having left Philadelphia, I don't know what part of Kensington they're in and what they are doing and how they are. And that was just to chance. All of that is to say, you are changing the way that people see something that is just so wrongly judged and almost persecuted socially, when no one understands what's going on. No one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's face it. There's a stigma against almost everything in life and against everybody in one way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter what you're experiencing or where you're coming. You could be living in the nicest zip code and there's a stigma because now you're privileged or entitled or whatever the case may be. And some people don't get it, that it takes hard work and people want to lead a lifestyle they want to lead. So like there's a stigma towards stuff like that. And when we look at those stigmas and we talk about them and we break them apart, I was stigmatized so badly that it kept me in addiction. And that stigma was something that made me not leave addiction, because it was such a taboo thing to talk to people. Like you were almost like your own entity of being in recovery. Like people in recovery, it was so different back then. Like they didn't talk about it. That's why it was anonymous.
Yeah.
Think about it. It was all anonymous.
Yeah.
So it became one of those things that if you don't be a voice for what's affecting you or for what's traumatized you or for what you believe in, then really what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, like yourself, like you have a passion. You have a passion for growing yourself, for growing others, for coaching, for developing, and you let that be known, and it's affected and it's ingrained into other people. You know, but then you got people who just don't talk about it and just sort of just like you're not helping because there's other people out there that need those voices. So
Yes. Yes. And I think it's been an interesting period of time over the last few years. I think COVID like really woke people up to entertaining the idea of sobriety as a principle, and then understanding how difficult it was for them to give up their one or two glass of wine night habit. And then it really, I think, led some people to understand that addiction is a brain habit. It's a pattern. It's something that you can have a proclivity for sure. And it can be something like epigenetically was handed down to you if you're coming from a line of addiction. But at any moment's notice, your brain can cause you to have a habitual need for something just from trauma. And I think the conversation has gotten a little bit more plentiful, and something I think more people are open to the idea of entertaining rather than pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Like, if you can't give up Cheetos, you have no right to tell someone that they are a loser for not being able to give up something that is chemically engineered and rendered for you to need until you die so someone can make money off of you.
and it's funny you said it when you're talking about the area you're from. The area you're from, that mentality, that whole like, you know, what's wrong with them? They're this, they're that. You know, they brought it upon themselves. They get what they deserve. They put themselves in that position. It's that lack of empathy, but sometimes, you know, it's the lack of having any type of personal contact or personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
Or they may be bitter towards it, or it may have been like a parent, or it may have been an uncle or an aunt, or they may have been, you know, they may have been sexually assaulted. They may have, you know, been gaslit. You know, there may be very different things that happen to them that they shut off in their mind. So the more and more that you talk about it and that you say it, no matter how much it pisses them off, no matter how much like it bothers them or makes them feel uncomfortable, that's the point of it. Make somebody feel uncomfortable to the point where they embrace it and they're like, I get it. They're people. They're out in
Yeah.
the streets, yes, they're laying there, and you can call whatever name you want, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. And
Yes.
that's what people don't realize. And I think, you know, the more and more you have people like yourself, Sarah, who are voices for things, it helps. So, you know, you help. You know, just doing this is a huge help. So, and to
Thank you.
me as well, because you talked about trauma. Nobody talks about trauma. That's like a taboo thing.
Dude, it's all I think about. Endlessly. I know that it has literally been the direction of my life, and I'm in a place where I'm trying to rewire it and now be in charge. And not like in a perfectionist manner, but in a healthy way. Like, I'm just ready to flourish with joy and not like survival tactics that I don't even know why I have them, but they're there.
Well, and speaking of for as long as we followed each other's journeys, I mean, from day one, I've seen that with you as well, and I've seen that progression. I've seen that change, you
Thank
know,
you.
and we have changed as individuals and we change as people, and I also think that comes with once again the connections that we have and the people that we surround ourselves by,
Yeah.
you know, and what we're looking to get out of that and what they're looking to get out of it. So, you know, I love it, and there's people, you know, that can really benefit from people like us.
Yeah.
So, you know, keep doing this because
Oh,
the more we talk
thank you.
about it, the more people will listen. If you get through to one person, it's worth it.
Literally, I think I can't tell you how many conversations I've had about it simply because it hurts me that they just so quickly wipe them off the face of the earth. And it's like, this could be your kid in like a week's notice. So you gotta peel back the righteousness here because it is an indiscriminatory disease
Mhm.
and it is aided by chemical functions. So, like, it's a recipe for disaster. And to be so flippant, like, oh, it'll never happen to me or anybody I care about. It's like, well, the statistics state that it's more likely it'll happen to at least two people within your extended family. So cross them fingers and start to share some graciousness for people, or at the very least, wish them no ill, wish them no harm. Don't judge them. Like, if you're not going to help, don't hurt.
I always say, if you, you know, those of you who aren't doing it, don't bother the ones that are, because it's so important, because you're hindering us. And it's one word that it breaks down to and that people forget about, because people become very, people aren't as selfless as they used to be. There's more selfishness going on since COVID. And that's understood because it was all everybody for themselves at that point in time. That really showed a lot of division in communities. But I think people forget about the word compassion.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you have that compassion towards individuals. You know,
Yes.
don't get me wrong. People are always like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a nice guy. You do great stuff," and that makes me feel great. But you know what? I'm still a person. And there's some
Yeah.
people out there that I don't like. There are still some people that I try to respect, and I just can't figure it out how I'm going to do that. So, like, but I understand at the end of the day, we're all the same. So I've got to be able to have a little compassion for that. And that, once again, is when you start understanding empathy and all that other stuff. And, opening yourself to others is a
Yeah.
difficult thing.
Yeah. It is. And I think in the opening yourself up to others, there's also the opposite coin of that for me, which was something I learned from your story, was that I can, if I'm ready to and emotionally available to, insert myself into, at the very least, asking someone who seems to be unconscious on the sidewalk in Rittenhouse, Philadelphia, if they're okay, if they'd like for me to call an ambulance. Do you need some water? If I had Narcan or someone around it, do you need to be resuscitated? Like, are you feeling like you're in an overdose? Those things I never would have felt. Whew, I'm gonna cry. I never would have felt emboldened to insert myself into someone in that state's life to help, because I just didn't know what to do. And it's not something that's discussed. And it became something that started getting discussed around like 2010 in the club scene. There was a lot of Narcan going around. There was a lot of conversation on Narcan and like how to do it. And it mainly was in the punk scene, the bike scene. The Barbary was an epicenter of that. And I, at the time, was working the door. So
You were at the door at the Barbary?
I did for
Oh
like
my gosh.
5 years. I probably let you in 1,000 times. I let my husband in 1,000 times. I literally, that was one of the highlights of my life in Philadelphia, was
I
working
am
there.
so
But
excited to have you on my show now, because now I'm gonna peel some layers back and find this stuff out. So
yes, yes, I lived 50 lives in Philadelphia for sure. But I
haven't
think
we all?
no, yeah, yeah, we'll leave some of those quietly behind. But you really gave me the autonomy to, at least if I feel like I can be helpful in the situation, to help. And that was something that was very simple for you to do. And also the fact that you are only here right now because someone stopped and asked if you needed help and if you were okay. And it ended up with an ambulance and a policeman, and the policeman saying, "You're lucky we weren't busy today," which was such a chance of fate, because Philadelphia is never not busy. Whew.
Absolutely, and yeah, and in all honesty, that when that officer said that to me, that wasn't my last overdose. So you would think that when you're working on your fourth overdose, and the police and the paramedics say that to you, and your first overdose, you wind up on a sidewalk against a wall in Fishtown with your car, where you could have killed somebody or yourself, or really somebody would have been my fear. My fear myself, I would have probably been like, "You deserve that," and but somebody else would, so I look at that stuff, but like, it was sad. I mean, that wasn't my last overdose. There was one more after that, and that's when it was like, you know what? But if I didn't have that compassion, and I will tell you, it's funny that that police officer that said it to me, I went back then to pick up my keys at the police station, and he came out and he said to me, "Do me a favor." He's like, "Get some help." He's like, "You owe that to yourself." So I want people to know that, like, well, some cops are total D-bags. There's some really compassionate ones out there that care.
Yeah.
But yeah, that hit home. I didn't know what Narcan was. I mean, I was addicted to drugs. I didn't care what Narcan was. I didn't want something to save
Yeah.
me. I wanted
Like,
something
get
to
out
make
of
me feel
here.
good. Yeah, like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, just ruined my best high possible. You brought me out of it. What the hell? It's so funny,
Yeah.
as we're talking about it here, I sit with the Narcan at my desk.
Yeah.
It's like all over. It's for some. I have Narcan in my bathroom. I don't know why. I don't use, but I keep
Yeah.
it for everybody. You're right. To educate people on what it is, and educate people on what it does, and to be able to make people think differently. And that is so different. That is so important, like to think differently, because so many of us are pigeonholed. We have blinders on, our own little worlds. We are staunch beliefs because we're just thick-headed individuals as a society. But you can get somebody to change it. If I get one person to change the perception, if I can get one bar to allow me to bring Narcan in and put it in there, if I can have, somebody say yes, show up and bring as much Narcan as possible, I'm winning. We're winning as a society. So
Literally.
thank you for that. And if you ever do need Narcan, let me know. I'll get you as much as you need.
Oh my God, I may need that because down here, I think you can only get it at the police station. But
You can.
yeah.
However, I hit Wildwood every weekend, so I can always meet you and
Oh,
bring you some.
true. Okay, yeah. When we meet up, I would love that actually.
But
There's guys, I'll put a link in the show notes for I'll look for something on YouTube to show you how to properly help someone with Narcan. It's very simple, but it'll be a very easy step-by-step video that I'll put in the show notes.
I can actually give you the training video that my good friend and partner in community, Roz Pichardo, did for us
Perfect.
for my show, and you could use that. That's an amazing training video. She has resuscitated over 300 individuals
Oh,
from overdoses. So she is somebody that you could learn from. So that's very cool, and thank you for doing that because that's bringing
of
the
course.
awareness needed, Sarah.
Of
I love it.
course. I there's just so many tribulations in life, and you never know what hand you'll be dealt. There's so many ways in which you could exercise or compensate for the way in which you feel. And I only become more and more aware of how difficult life is for everyone. And it's something that can happen to anybody. And it's important that we just stop being dicks to people and just give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And if you can help people, why wouldn't you? It's like creepy if you don't, like you should think about why you wouldn't want to help someone with something so easy as what you will see in the video is the ability to help someone with Narcan.
And not just that. It's if you think about it, I think what happens is people get a connotation that if you're using Narcan, and we'll say like you're enabling somebody to use drugs. This isn't a drug. If this was a drug, everybody would out there taking it. This is really only enabling somebody to breathe. It's enabling them to stay alive or to come back, because they have stopped breathing. They have flatlined at that point, and they come back from this. This isn't enabling anybody. I think people use the word enabling, and they forget that it doesn't matter what you do or say to somebody. They're going to do what they want anyway. They're going to use drugs. They're going to leave. They're going to go out. Whatever the case may be, whatever situation it is, you won't change anybody's mind. But if you can be part of, the harm reduction solution, that's huge. And once again, that's the empathy, compassion, awareness, everything.
Yeah, it costs you nothing, guys.
Nothing.
$0.
Nothing. Except for, it might cost some people a little bit of ego.
Big time. Big time.
That's it.
And also, for those that are like I was before I really knew, well, what can I do besides just standing over them and being like, call 911. Oh man, oh man. It's just take ownership over educating yourself on it. Find resources that you trust, and I'll put a ton in the show notes that Britt recommends. But you can do a lot. Britt is the perfect example of that. One person can change and do so much. If you don't mind, I would love to jump into talking about how Philly Unknown kind of transitioned from photography into its current rendition. And then
Sure.
let's talk about the transitioning homes because you're a force. You've just done so much in such a small period of time and so beautifully.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Philly Unknown was started because I was in my active addiction. I was at a $300 a day heroin habit at this point, and I was feeling like I had no connections to anybody. I was hating my life. I was lying to everybody. I was running from everybody, especially myself. And I wasn't finding any type, once again, connections. I didn't feel like I had them. Instagram all of a sudden became this big, and I love photography, and I love the fact all these nice pictures were being posted, and there was all these photographers that were known in the city, and there were those first set of influencers that came out in Philadelphia that were being highlighted and showcased, and I sort of felt like, you know what, I'm a nobody. I'm in the big scheme of it. Nobody knows who I am. I'm nobody. I don't know have any connection to anybody. And there's a lot of other people like that out there. So I want to start something that if I go clean, I promised myself if I went into recovery and I went clean off the heroin for my first 30 days and 4 years, that I was going to start a place in the community where people who were underdogs or were maybe suffering from a little anxiety, social awkwardness, whatever, felt that they belonged as well, that they had a voice, a platform. So I started Philly Unknown, not even thinking of what the hell it was going to be. It was just going to be me like showing my pictures and everybody else's. I was going to showcase it. I was going to be, the next Igers Philly or, or like Brandon's Peopledelphia. I was going to, do something like that. And I say Brandon's Peopledelphia because he inspired me to do Philly Unknown. However, I didn't tell people about my addiction because I was terrified that people would be like, oh, like, look at that junkie. Who's that weirdo? Oh my gosh, he was shooting dope. Like, what is that? And so I was really just holding it in and I was just using it as an escape. I was using it as a way to not go back and use drugs, but nobody knew that. I was making it in the community. And the more and more I started making those healthy connections with people from the page, they started learning my story and I realized nobody was judging me for it. Nobody was turning their nose up to me. Nobody was like backing up like I had a disease that was, contagious or I was infectious. And I found there was a place for me. I found that there was a place for others. And I found that there was people who believed in me that I didn't even know and that actually would be there for me and people that I just met. So Philly Unknown started with that premise. And then I had my first photo walk meetup because that was sort of the thing to do back then. In like 16, I did it. And they all showed up and I had this paper where I was presenting this nonprofit to them and getting their buy-in. And the interesting about that day was I had just had my camera gear. My house was broken into. I had all my camera gear stolen. Everything that I had worked hard to fight for through my, recovery was taken away in that little bit of time. Most people might have relapsed or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let this get to me. I'm going to turn this into power. So I showed up with the meetup. People were saying, don't do it if you're not feeling good about it. And I did it. The only thing that was holding me back from starting a nonprofit was money because I had spent it all on drugs. And everything I worked for went to drugs. So there was about $1,000 I needed to start the nonprofit, just really get the papers going, everything flowing. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I was presenting this to the whole group. The group then in turn, not knowing about the nonprofit or anything at all, presented to me $1,200 in cash and checks because they were trying to help me recoup my losses from my camera and everything that happened when I was stolen. But I took that money and I started Philly Unknown. I didn't use it for me. I didn't use it for a camera. I didn't use it for the stuff that was taken from me because that's just stuff. I used it for what I needed it. So I actually had these stakeholders in the community that started Philly Unknown with me. And those people have become some of my best friends today. They're my biggest supports and some of the reasons that I continue to do what I do because I have that backing and I feel like I have those connections now. So that was a long-winded way to tell you about how it all sort of transpired. But it was a great day. That day in August, I'll never forget. There was 22 people standing there, and when I got that $1,200, I actually cried. Yeah. And then that money went right to the nonprofit, and we started Philly Unknown together.
Yeah, and I think from a perspective of rewiring your neurons, kind of change what the shotgun reaction is for your brain of how you want to emotionally respond. For you to, in that moment, step back and be like, nope, let's fucking go.
Yep.
And then to be rewarded by the universe with this completely beautiful gesture that then gave you the only thing you were lacking to be able to start what has now turned into the journey of your lifetime, is overwhelmingly joyous.
Yeah, and that's when I think I realized the power of community. And people don't understand the power in community. A bunch of individuals working towards the same goal or believing in the same principles of life with differing views and being able to accept that. And I learned it and I felt it. And it was just something that I'll always remember because it was one of the first times in my life that I felt like I belonged.
Yeah.
And then I had this support system of people that I was just meeting for the first time in real life, because we knew each other on social media. But they believed in what I was doing. So it was really cool. And I didn't first of all, that's a lot of money. And second of all, who are those people to be giving me money for myself, So it just didn't seem right. And it just was the perfect situation. And Yeah, it very memorable. It's a really great way that Philly Unknown started. So when we
Yeah,
talk about it
it's
being a community-based organization,
yeah.
it's because of the community.
You mean it. You really mean it. Was
Yeah,
that the first moment where you kind of felt like you were given the permission to use your passion to turn it into something?
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah, when I realized that I was able to pursue my passion and give back, it was so important.
yeah.
It was actually so overwhelming because for the first time I felt like I had purpose.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Their
'cause,
generosity.
yeah, their generosity gave me purpose because so many people, especially going through your lifetime in addiction, like you don't feel like there's a purpose. If you did, you wouldn't probably be in addiction.
Yeah,
You would find your way out of it.
yeah,
So I look at it and I find that I have found the purpose that way. They gave me that purpose. They gave me a sense of self being and self worth.
yeah.
So I want to give that to others throughout my journey.
Oh, you have, my friend. And you're literally still just getting started, which is what's so crazy to me because you've already accomplished so much. So tell everyone what you mainly do with Philly Unknown in the streets, on the ground, interacting with people. Give us like a day in the life of when
Oof.
you're doing your work. And I'm
Wow.
sorry to ask you because I know it's heavy.
No, it's just I don't know where to start. There's so much sometimes. We
Yeah,
have
you
several
do a lot. You
initiatives.
do a lot.
We do. We do. I mean, we started it initially to start doing the outreach on the grounds for people that were experiencing homelessness, that were unsheltered, for people that were experiencing substance use disorder and living on the streets and sort of just lost. And it turned about around and evolved more that it wasn't just that, it was everybody. Because people on the streets aren't the only people that are hurting. There's people that are living behind closed doors that don't have as much. All the residents in Kensington, they don't want what's going on in Kensington. They didn't ask for it. People are always like, well, they can leave. No, they can't because you know what? That's their home. That's what their life they built. It's not that easy for everybody to just leave when they want to leave. That's why some people talk about, oh, it should be easy. If she's being abused or he's being abused, they should just leave. It's not that easy, people. Leaving is not that easy. So when we talk about it, Philly Unknown goes out and we provide resources. We provide what we call compassion bags, where we put socks, toothbrushes, toothpaste, whatever hygiene products we have, snacks, whatever resources they need, Narcan, first aid, whatever it is that they can utilize. We get out in the streets, we hand to everybody. We don't care what they're wearing. We don't care if they have no shoes or they're wearing their Sunday best. We offer it to them because everybody's in need and there's no questions asked, there's no judgment asked. So we hit the streets, we do that. We provide the compassion bags. Um, we have a community garden in Kensington because of the fact of all the trauma that goes on. I wanted to be able to give back to the community that was being suffered, that was so much suffering going on and so much taken away from because of this opioid epidemic that has been going on. And the way, Kensington is the largest open air drug market in the country.
Yeah.
I want to give something back. So we put a 13,000 square foot community garden in that I call our
Wow.
community healing garden, where we have vegetation, we have floral, we have programming. Kids come, a community comes, they chill, they hang out, they connect. It's a place to escape, and we have that. It's beautiful. It's amazing. If you're ever up here, you let me know. We'll take you over there and we'll tour it, which
Absolutely.
is just great. And we also connect with a lot of other organizations because one of the things, once again, with me was it's not a me thing, it's a we thing.
Yeah.
So if there's other organizations doing what we do and we can help them and vice versa, let's do it. So I've actually taken Philly on to the point where like there's Operation in my backyard, there's Operation Save My City, there's the Courage Medicine, there's this project, there's that one. I connected and partnered with all of them because there's something that I could give to each of them that they could help them, and there's something that they could give to us that could help what we're doing because we're all in it together. So I
Yeah.
partner with everybody possible, and like I said, it's not about me, and it's not about just feeling known. It's bigger than us, and
Yeah.
so that's what we do on the streets. That's what we do for the residents in the community. We do that. We do a lot of other things too, like people call us, they need something, we'll do what we can to get it to them. Next week we're partnering with 3 different organizations and we're preparing probably over 150 Thanksgiving meals.
Wow.
And, we just raised enough money that we were able to buy 15 more turkeys and meals for families. So we
Wow.
do stuff like that. Then Christmas last year, we handed out over 3,500 toys in the Kensington area. This year, we're hoping to do 5,000. Monday, we're doing our big, Cover Up Philly initiative where we look for blankets, sleeping bags, tents, hand warmers, gloves, hats, scarves to cover people up. And we're not just talking about people that are in shelter. We're also talking about people that have houses that don't have heat, that don't have
Yeah.
running water. So we
Yeah.
provide them with it. So that's one of our initiatives. We've got so many initiatives going on, and it becomes head spinning. But
Yeah.
when you peel the layers back and you see it unfold, it's all worth it.
Oh, friend, you're such a beautiful, kind soul. The world
Oh
is
my
so
gosh.
much better with you in it.
Well, thanks, Sarah, and stop crying because I'm trying to hold tears
I
back watching you.
know. Oh, my joy is just popping out of my face.
And I
I think
appreciate, and that's
it's
how we met because you connected with us and you donated, you gave us winter gear. I remember that very well because I was so excited to meet you that day because you were
oh
actually living in the Brewery County area,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I remember that, and because it evoked something in you to say, hey, I want to be able to give back. Because you know what? You don't have to go out on the streets to give back. You don't have to give money to give. You don't have to walk up to somebody because not everybody knows how to approach somebody because they don't
yeah,
know what to say to them. It's real simple though. Say hi. It really
yeah,
doesn't take much. But
yeah,
you were able to give what you had, which was resources, and that's what we need.
yeah,
So if we have people like yourself who could filter that to us, and then we could take it out to those in need, it's a win-win. So once
yeah.
again, it's not just about us; it's about everybody. It's about you. Everybody who donates, everybody who gives, is a part of Fill the Unknown. It's a part of. They're all part of the solution.
Oh, you've made such a butterfly effect. It's so crazy. It's really beautiful. And I think even as an entrepreneur, you've just managed to just make such an impact at every turn, and it's definitely an art. I think I would love to know just your thoughts on entrepreneurship. Like, what has it been like for you? I know you've been wildly successful at it, and I would love to hear about your thoughts on it.
You know, entrepreneurship for me is always something I've always wanted to do. I remember being in corporate America, and I just hated corporate America. I always wanted to work for myself. I was always that person that was selling the lemonade and cutting the grass and wanting to have a yard sale of all the stuff that my parents didn't know I was selling on them and stuff like that. You know, because I just like to have money and freedom, and I don't want to be behind four walls. And I was doing that, and I thought to myself one day and I'll tell you, I was in the pool. I just quit my job in Tampa, and I was on the phone with my father at the time, and he said to me, "You're never going to be happy until you're working for yourself." He said, "That's when life will change." And I remember that because my father, when I went to college, my father left his job and started his own business because he said, "This is my chance now." And he became wildly successful. He was he was definitely a hugely man-made person, or he self-made. I know people say that there's power of spiritual power of helping you, but you make it yourself. You really do.
Yeah.
But he instilled that in me, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And when I was finally fed up with the corporate world, and I just said, "Peace out," and I left, I was not knowing what I was going to do. I figured I got to do something. I was getting heavy because I was drinking so much, so I started walking dogs. Then I realized that there was money in walking dogs, and
Hmm.
there was a business there. Plus, it was therapy. I was getting exercise. I love dogs. Wasn't too thrilled about people at the time.
Yeah.
So I started that. So entrepreneurship is something that if you find a passion and you find what you're good at and what makes you smile when you do it, pursue that passion and don't stop. Reckless abandon is what I tell people. Until you get to that point and you have recklessly abandoned it, do not stop
Hmm.
because you will be pleased with the outcome. When I think of entrepreneurship, I think anybody can do it.
Hmm.
Some people not probably as well as others only because you have to have that belief in yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. And some people don't want to work for themselves because really, everybody, I want you to all know it. Like even as an entrepreneur, I'm never working for myself. I'm always working for others. My phone doesn't stop. My phone's going 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But you get to dictate and control that a little bit better.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship isn't as easy as people think it is. It's not all that glamour. It's not all that glitz. It's not like, oh, you're traveling today. Yeah, but you don't see where I'm sitting here crying and throwing my phone and cursing people out and effing this and effing that. You got to have that roller coaster effect with it, and you got to know that it's okay in the end. And
Hmm.
no expectations because they're just premeditated resentments. Take
Yes.
whatever comes your way. So entrepreneurship is really just harnessing, what you have a passion for and just going for it. To
Hmm.
me, at least that's to me.
Oh, I love that. I think that's definitely been the passion acquired to do that has been how your journey has come off to those that were paying attention. And I think it's it's on the rarer side, but I think in a larger city like Philadelphia, there's a lot of go-getters. There's a lot of people that see the gaps of need and want to fill them. And if you find that niche, you really can make a huge impact and, also simultaneously be helping yourself by creating this life of freedom. That for me, I think you're just such a perfect example of how one can just find their lane and make it work and also help others in the process. Because I think people think it's difficult to do both, and it can be, but it doesn't have to be.
No, and that's it. It is. It is difficult, and I always tell people that. I say that because I don't want to set people up like it's going to be easy. It's difficult. If you find it easy, good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's days where I wake up and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? I want a paycheck. I want a steady paycheck. I want benefits. I want paid time off. I want all this stuff. But then I also look at like, I want to dress in gym shorts and a t-shirt and sneakers, and I want to be able to go hang out with Sarah for lunch during the afternoon and not have to plan it 5 months in advance and wait for a day off. So there's drawbacks to it. There's good and bad to it. Entrepreneurship, I will tell you, I think will help our economy so much more than anything. So if people are looking to start a business of some type, now is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now is the time. Cities are growing. Economy is actually, people think it's at an all-time low. It's at an all-time high. If it weren't, the prices wouldn't be where they're at. So start now because you'll find your groove, and don't be discouraged. And if you fail or you think you failed, rework it. Find somebody who is doing what you're doing and talk to them, because they're going to help you. That'll be somebody to help you mentor. Learn from them and don't be afraid. And, once again, don't be afraid to take risks. And that's the biggest thing right there. You know that. Don't be afraid to take a risk.
Risks are it.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about you. You take risks and you go for it. And you just really go for it. And that's sick. That's amazing.
I don't give a fuck.
Right
I just do it.
Well, that right there, I think something that is inborn into you, to be able to just go for it.
Yeah, it's been I think both of us have been in a journey in life to where we've paid enough attention to the ahas to where you're like, what? That's weird. Why'd I do that? Why'd I say that? And I have noticed that over the last 2 years specifically, I've come to a really beautiful place in understanding that I am a high performer. I'm a high functioning individual. But the reasons why I became that person don't need to be the reasons why I am that person moving forward. So literally over the last 2 years, I've kind of reclaimed my efforts and my productivity for myself rather than creating, some idea of my outer value and worth for other people. Like, look what I did. Love me. Like, I don't need to do that anymore. I do it to impress myself and to just keep trying to help others. I really want everyone to understand that you can't get rid of what has happened to you. You can't get rid of what has shaped you, but you can change the reason why you do the things you do moving forward. And that can always evolve. There's never, an end point. It's always another step and another step.
And part of that, Sarah, is you've got to surrender too. You've got to just say, you know what? I can't do it all. I don't understand it all. I don't know it all. And I'm not perfect. There's really no such thing as perfection. There really isn't. And it's okay. And I think people also have to suck up a little pride sometimes,
For sure.
And that's important.
Pride is good on paper, but that's about it,
It is. Pride's good on paper and it's good on social media posts.
Yes, and marketing.
Yeah. Real life,
Yeah, not so much. Britt, you are such a treasure. I can't wait to hear your answer for this last one, but I asked all of my guests the final question. Britt, how do you make your life rich?
How do I make my life rich? Wow. That's a really great final question.
Thank you.
You're good. You're really good.
Thank you.
I will tell you by doing this right here, right now. you're you're making my life richer just by being a part of it for this hour of our day, by asking about me, by asking about what I do and the mission that I have, and showing that you care. I mean, people make my life richer. The connections that I have to positive individuals who will compliment me and everybody else, and that's so important. Once again, if there's anything I could stress to people out there, you could make the least amount of money in the world, but you could be the richest person in the world if you have the right connections to the right people. I always say, in this world, find people that you love and make sure they love you back.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me rich right there.
Oh, so beautiful. So, so beautiful. Thank you for all of your work. Thank you for being you and for sharing that with the world so that other people can see that it's safe to do so. The water's warm, guys. Jump on in. It's a safe space here. We can all do it together.
Absolutely. And if anybody ever wants to know, feel free to reach out. I'm an open book, as you know, and I'm willing to do that. And Sarah, once again, thank you for making the world a better place by doing what you do
Thank you.
and believing in people. So and for dealing with my loud Jew here, because they have a mind of their own, and I apologize.
I love it. They're like, we want to be in the show.
I know, they're like, we want to say goodbye to her.
We heard her voice for an hour. I want to say goodbye.
Well, you will meet them sometime soon.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to stick all the goodies in the show notes. Please visit Britt's Instagram. Then you can check out all the other things that he's doing. We're going to include show notes for you to learn about Narcan, how to help someone with it, and also ways in which you can give back to Philly Unknown and all of the many other organizations they work with.
Thank you so
Britt,
much.
Thank you so much, friend.
Love you. Everybody.
Love you.
Thank you. Awesome.